This is the finals of the 2v2 Keelboat Team Racing Championships for the Carmela Cup. It's the British National Keelboat Team Racing Championships, and we have a really exciting few races here today. And what we have is in the blue boats, in boats 1 and 2, it's a bit hard to see the sail numbers. We've got the Bonside Nabons, and in the red boats 5, 6, we have OCSS, which is Oxford and Cambridge Sailing Society. So we have two really good teams who have featured on this channel before. The Bonside Nabons, we've seen them. They're a combination of the Elmside Neighbours and the Bonbons, and they're actually one team today for this larger format. We need 8 sailors for a team, and we've got 25 seconds on the clock as we're coming in to the start of the first race. And over this event, it's been really, really windy. So the sailors they're on cut down or reefed mains, and they've had a lot on. And we're coming up with the final few seconds to go, and you can see they're fighting for the boat end on this boat bias line. It's a port hand square. And the interesting thing about a port hand square for team racing is that it means you end up with a very short first beat and a very short final beat, because you've got the square, which means you've got a long run instead. And because of this, it's really important to win the bias end of the line, particularly in keel boats, because if you end up underneath someone, it can be really hard to get out the front. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. So boat 5 won the start. They've ended up at the boat end of the line, at the biased end, going fast. Boat 6 should have won the line in a normal race, but instead boat 2, who's on starboard, is able to prevent them from tacking where they currently are. And that's really important because they can't tack, which means they can't consolidate Red's winning start into a winning race, because the only stable combination in 2v2 team racing is a 1-2. And that's because the way we score a two-boat team race is its last boat loses. So the Blues are just trying to keep themselves out of last place, so that boat in 2 is trying to stop the red boat tacking to let his teammate through so that they can end up out of the 4 by the time they reach Mark 1. And the other red boat goes ahead and takes the 1 and is then getting ready to hit back and attack the other blue boat. So really the aim of the game here is to get control of another boat, send them to the back of the race, and then help your teammate get you back into a 1-2 combination and hopefully sail that around the rest of the race course. But it's a really exciting format of racing, because often you don't ever end up with a stable combination, and races can end up being sailed right to the finish line. So we're going to see what happens here. And because this is the national final, we have some really good sailors here. And so you can see straight away, boat 5 pushes straight back and goes to try and get a conversion on boat 1. So they really want to just immediately act, and they don't waste any time. And you can see coming down the course now, we've got a lot of wind, and because all the boats are doing stuff, this is where team racing can be very different to fleet racing, is that a lot of the boats aren't sure whether they're going to get kite up straight away, because when it's windy and when you're trying to do maneuvers and do a conversion around other boats, there are sometimes times where you don't put the kite up so you can luff an opponent. So some of these drops are some of these hoists, are a bit messier than we might normally expect to see from really good teams at this point in a race. But it actually is really common when you're team racing to see some messy hoists and some messy drops, because there's a lot on for everyone in the boat. There's a lot of things they need to be doing all at once. And so here we can see boat 1 and 2, they're kind of split with a red boat in between them, and then we've got red 5 who are much further ahead still in the 1. So the problem here that the teams have is it's a bit of a conversion race. It looks like that blue boat 2, who's on the far right of the screen, they're probably in the 4. So boat 1 wants to do something before boat 5 does something to them. So it's a conversion race. Who can get it done first? So boat 1 is thinking, let's act quickly. They've broken the overlap. They're trying to extend forwards on boat 6, and then they're going to try and jibe probably and sweep them to take them out on starboard before boat 5 can take them out. And the thing you need to remember watching this is, although it doesn't look that bad as we're looking downwind at these boats, it was really windy. And so boat 1 jibes there, they're on starboard now, and they're going to attack 6 before 5 can come over and get them. And now they're luffing boat 6, they're forcing them to jibe, but unfortunately, their teammate has ended up on the wrong side of this whole stack and is caught in that luff as well, which is really, really bad news for boat 1, because that's exactly where they don't want their teammate. They were hoping for their teammate to pass behind the 2 boats being involved in that sweep and then be able to take the 2 or the 3. And instead, boat 1 is in a bit of a messy situation. They're trying to drop their kite, and here we've got that thing we talked about earlier, where boat 5 is able to attack a boat with their kite up whilst they have their kite down. And that's bad news for the boat with their kite up, because it's very hard to avoid, to luff, when you have your kite up. Now, as it happens, it's quite clean, but the red boats 5-6 now have the 1-2. And what this really is a lesson, that the lesson from this whole incident, and you can see actually boat 6 here is still trying to defend that 1-2, then giving a little luff on boat 2 to make sure that they can't get mark room. But the real lesson we can draw from this is that at the top end, when it comes to team racing, boat handling and boat speed are everything. Because once you've got really good team racers on the course, everyone knows what they're meant to do, pretty much. In most situations, they know kind of what the optimum play is. Okay, there are wind shifts, every course is a bit different, locations are a bit different. Some of the tactics do change, but the really hard part is actually doing it. You need to execute that maneuver better than your opponents can, which is hard when you're racing, again, really good sailors. As they're coming up the final beat, you can see some of the horrible clouds that were forming over the race course. You can see a bit better here just how windy it was and the kind of conditions, the gustiness, the shiftiness that these guys were up against. And they're coming up the final beat, and you can see boat 2 has tacked off to go up the left-hand side of the beat. So they were the boat who was previously in 3, and boat 5 has chosen to go with them, who was previously in 1. So the reason they've done that is because you never want your boat who's the danger boat, the one who's in danger of being overtaken, in this case boat 6, to go to the left-hand side of the final beat if you can avoid it, because another boat who gets on starboard will then be able to attack them. So instead, boat 6 have stayed out to the right, they're on starboard, they've got the advantage. Boat 5 are now just hitching back up to get on the ley line to the finish line, and OCSS in the red boats have done a really good job of just stitching this race up. They've controlled everything into the finish line, and there's not a lot that the Bonsai Nablons can do to attack them back. And again, the lesson from this race is that boat speed and boat handling are really what's going to make you a tactical genius. Because whenever you have better boat handling, whenever you can do those tough maneuvers, then that's going to give you so many more options in any given scenario. There's so many more things you can do, and that will give you normally a better chance at doing the best tactical option. So we're going to go straight from this into race 2 of this finals, and we're going to see who wins. So this is a best of 3 finals, which means that all the pressure is on here for the Bonsai Nablons to try and get one more on the scorecard, and OCSS they're at match point. You know, this is, if they win this race, then they win the national championships overall. And we can see them now in this second race coming in with just around 40 seconds on the clock. And something which I found really interesting talking to the sailors, especially a lot of the sailors competing in this, are more often doing dinghy team racing. And something that I found interesting talking to them was that they found that even in the windy conditions, in the sonars, they preferred leading in. So it's harder, especially with these cut down sails on, to drive underneath someone when you're following them, which is what you'd normally do in the windier conditions. In the windier conditions, often the person following has a bit of an advantage, and you're trying to avoid leading in. But in these kind of conditions with these boats, you can actually still kill a lot of time, and it can be hard to push underneath someone and get enough of an overlap that you're able to luff them hard or do any kind of tactical maneuver without stalling out. So again, all these guys are just trying to win that boat end of the line. And actually, as they start here, you can see it's actually pretty similar to last time. And almost dead similar. You've got one of these red boats, boat 5, who is right at the boat end of the line. They've won the start. Boat 6 is also having a good start. They started around the middle, but boat 2 is again on starboard, preventing them from tacking. And on a longer beat, again, they might be able to get out the front here. I mean, boat 2 is in bad air. They're losing out, but it doesn't matter, because all they have to do is have enough of an overlap, enough of a piece of boat 6 to stop them from tacking. And probably if this had been earlier in the day, this course might have been relayed, because you can see it's very long starboard and it's not a particularly square beat. But at this point, with the wind picking up and things, they just wanted to get these races complete. And they've been able to hold them for long enough, boat 6, that their teammate has managed to get around the outside, even though boat 6 has eventually tacked out of there. their teammate is able to come in on starboard and secure them so that the Blues don't have that 3-4, which is the only position which is really hard to come back from in two-boat team racing. Although even that, on a port box, when you've got that long run, even a 1-2 isn't as safe as you'd probably like it, because especially in keelboat team racing, when you've got some big kites up, you can get a really, really nice covering effect on an opponent. So now we're on to this top reach, and again, the red boats just start attacking at the first possible opportunity. It's really nice with these top teams, seeing teams just immediately revert to the play. They look at their position, they say, what position am I in? What position is my teammate? What's the combination? And as soon as you know your position and the combination, well, what's my job in that position of that combination? What's my job to do now? And they just do it. So they've gone straight in. They're now getting their kite up, and the other boats are also all deploying their kites quickly. So as soon as you see the other boat starting to hoist, then you know it's okay for you to hoist too, because that means that you're going to be able to not get luffed by someone who's just got their jib up. So everyone goes kite up. Some teams, again, have some kite problems, which, as I said, it's a bit expected because you're often doing things in much more of a hurry than you normally would, even though kind of it doesn't look like they ought to be as much of a hurry. And also between races, if you are keelboat team racing, you need to make sure you sort your kite out, although I'm sure all of these teams will have done that. And here you can see that the wind has slackened off a bit. It's not quite as windy, but there'll be big punchy gusts coming down. So keep an eye out for that and see how these teams react to it. And we've split, as is very common in two-boat team racing, into two pairs here. There's the boat 6 and boat 1 on the left-hand side. There was a little protest there for Rule 17. Boat 6 was claiming that boat 1 was breaking 17, but obviously the boats are allowed to sail angles with their kites up. They're not expected to go, dead downwind or that close to it. They can be kind of 20, 30 degrees off the wind. And on the other side, we've got boats 2 and 5, and they're also having a little jibing battle there, seeing who can come out on top. Boat 5 has kind of got caught on the outside in a place where they don't really want to be, but they're trying to just drive over the top, break the overlap, and push it round so then they can get back to where they want to be. And also, if they get far enough ahead, when both 5 and 2 jibe back, then they can give them a luff. So you can see that exactly there. Both of those two boats are jibing and coming back in towards the mark. But 1 decides to jibe onto starboard and is coming up to attack 5. 5 moves to pass over their front and luffs boat 2 to try and avoid 1. And this contact between the kites and boat 2 isn't keeping clear of 5. And the question comes down, has 5 given them room to keep clear? Well, 5 had to keep clear of 1, so has 1 given both boats room to keep clear? And the umpires decide, yes, 1 has given both boats room to keep clear, but boat 2 hasn't kept clear of 5, and so boat 2 is given a red flag penalty there, which you can see. And because of that, boats 5 and 6 end up once again in a 1-2, which is not good for the blue boats, because that means that they're going to have to try again to break down a 1-2 stable combination on the final beat, which, as we saw last time, is really hard. And it's in fact, the umpires give them a second penalty there, presumably for the same incident, maybe some sort of advantage gained. I'm not entirely sure what the second penalty was for, maybe even an incomplete spin. And that means that there's just going to be so much on for boat 10 here, because they're trying to overtake and pin out a boat whilst they've got 2 boats covering them, which is quite a tall order for any sailor, no matter how good they are. And you can see again those dark, threatening clouds as we come up onto this short final beat. And boat 1 tacks off to try and get a piece, and then, as we'd expect, again, boat 5, the boat in 1, is the one that goes with them, because they're the one who isn't in as much danger. So they're going to go with them, and then boat 6 is protected by their teammate and can progress towards the finish line without as much threat on. And with boat 2 in such a big 4, it feels a lot safer for the boat that's in 2 here. So it's probably a less worrying race than some of their others throughout the day. And it is a thing to think about for your own racing here, is what can I do to try and minimize penalties? And even amongst really good teams, you'll see that there are penalties given. There are umpire calls which decide races. And in hindsight, well, maybe that move by 1 on the run, that big sweep attempt, was a bit too aggressive. for where they were in the race. But the trouble is that, as we said in the previous race, it's a conversion race. Who can do the conversion first? And that's what encourages teams to do these big conversions, maybe when they're not quite ready to, or more aggressively than they'd like, because they have to do it before their opponents do. Because whoever gets the conversion off first is going to be the team that wins the race, or at least gets into the winning combination on that leg of the course. So they took a chance and it didn't pay off. And instead, boats 5 and 6 from OCSS, Oxford and Cambridge Sailing Society, progressed towards the finish line in a very secure, very comfortable 1-2 there. And they are going to be the national champions for the British two-boat keelboat team racing 2v2 championships. So congratulations to them.